Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone from around the world, from Australia, India, Italy, Germany, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, UK, and Vietnam. Welcome, mabuhay, Wanying Daija. Welcome, everyone. We are so glad you are here with us at the Consumer Healthcare Training Academy webinar under the series of 2021 Health and Wellness with the Difference. Today's topic is about getting creative with health messaging. Before I introduce our speaker and moderators for today, we are encouraging everyone to think through about these questions while listening. What excites you? What concerns you? What would you like to know more about? What ideas do you have? And please feel free to drop those questions, ideas, and thoughts in our chat box. Our thought leaders will answer your or some of your questions towards the end of the session. We are very honored and excited to have three thought leaders for today's webinar. Getting creative with health messaging. Our speaker for today is Mr. Jeremy Perrott. Jeremy is an award-winning creative in his own right and has won a long list of awards, including Cannes Lions, Andes, Mobius, Clio Health, Globals, RX Awards, and others. In June 2016, under his leadership, McCaughan Health won the coveted Most Creatively Awarded Network from Lions Health, which is part of the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity in its first year. Then Jeremy won the International Network of the Year 2 years in a row, as well as Clio Health and London International Awards Health Network of the Year in that same period. Passionately engaged in a mission to raise the bar and set new standards of excellence in the most regulated and difficult industry to be creative, Jeremy's motto is push for the best, work for the best, deliver the unexpected. As a result, McCaughan Health has become one of the most creatively awarded healthcare communications networks in the world and has been named Network of the Year for 4 consecutive years in a row by the Global Awards, an organization dedicated to the recognition of creative and innovative excellence in healthcare communication. In his spare time, Jeremy can be found fighting the good fight as a global ambassador for D&AD White Pencil or as a mentor for the SMASH program, which he founded. Currently, Jeremy consults for agencies and have recently collaborated with the film content industry, producing a series of short films. Our first moderator for today is Mr. Dave McCaughan. Dave has over 30 years of rich experience in globally known advertising and communication companies, and he has led Asia Pacific strategy planning, insights and market researches for various famous brands. Dave is one of the most sought experts when it comes to insights and foresight of consumer behavior and brands. He has over 500 appearances globally and is a frequent writer and author for Advertising Age, Campaign Asia, Research World, and many other regional publications. And our second moderator for today is our dearest, Mr. Steve Sowerby. Steve, the founder of Exponential and our co-founder of the Consumer Healthcare Academy, is a highly experienced marketer and general manager with over 30 years of corporate and agency experience. Steve has an in-depth knowledge in strategy, positioning, branding, and team building, as well as being an experienced trainer and facilitator. Steve is a passionate believer that brands are the most important asset of a business. He believes that every department and each individual in an organization has the power to add value to the brands of the business. Steve's knowledge and experience spans globally in areas of fast-moving consumer goods, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, skincare, retailing, media, and nonprofit organizations. He's a senior executive for Reckitt Benckiser and 3M Healthcare. Steve has managed divisions and run companies in Italy, Spain, France, Central Europe, Eastern Europe, Thailand, Singapore, and East Asia. Steve's diverse and multicultural background has allowed him to become fluent in 7 languages and adaptable to cultural norms. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming our speaker and moderators for today, Mr. Jeremy Perrott, Mr. Dave McCaughan, and Mr. Steve Sowerby.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Wow. How can we beat that, guys? Yeah. One of the best introductions I've seen for a while.
Okay, we just about finished now. Thanks very much. Well, that was great.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this. Welcome, Jeremy. Welcome, Dave, because I've always felt that the best medicine is the patient who is informed, inspired, and empowered. And I think creative is one of those really golden opportunities to really make a fundamental change in people's lives. So it's amazing to have Jeremy with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great.
And a special treat for me because Steve and I go back over 25 years when he was my client. Jeremy and I go back nearly as long, and Jeremy and I had the good fortune for about 10 years to actually work as partners, where he was the creative director and I was the head of planning for a big agency across Asia, and we spent way too much time in each other's offices, homes, and other places. But we shared a lot of adventures, and we put together a lot of ideas about creativity, and it's going to be great having that discussion. So I'm going to be asking one of our friends online here to keep on flicking the charts as we go through this. So if we go to the next chart.
Yeah, I think Sheila's going to do that for you, Dave.
I think so, yes. So next chart. So
yeah.
Whoop, go back. That's it.
There
Right.
we
So
go.
let's start with a forgotten truth. You know, marketing is a business of being exciting and new in a lot of ways. But it's where brands are born, flourish, they answer the demands in the marketplace. But the key thing that I think we have to remember about developing brands and marketing in general is that what we're doing is seeing what people really want and then bringing to market something that will help them achieve that in an exciting way. Because in a crowded marketplace like we have everywhere in the world today, if you're not noticed, you're dead. And so being creative is a key part of marketing, because it's the ability to be seen and to get your message across and to get people to notice that you have a way of helping them. So if we can just go to the next chart. Thanks, Sheila. That's it. So we're going to talk about advertising for health and pharma products today. And one of the things that Steve and I have talked about over the last few years as we've been working together on a lot of projects is that, you know, unfortunately, it still can be pretty boring. You know, you go into a pharmacy and the packaging is pretty dull. Too much white, too much small print, too much very serious language. Now, of course, some of that is regulated, but at the same time, we find that there's a real lack of creativity in the way in which brands present themselves, both on the shelf, POS messaging, in-store behavior, and then, of course, what they do outside of the store, what they do in media, etc. And what Jeremy and I have been talking about for a long, long time, and what he spent most of the last 10 years or so doing, is really trying to get pharmaceutical and health-oriented brands to change the way they communicate by becoming much less boring and much less interesting. Next chart, please. So what we have to do to solve that was, first of all, was to always remember the mantra that Steve and I use, that Jeremy and I use, that I think all smart marketers sort of get, but sometimes forget, which is that we're really just dealing with people. Some of those people are patients, some are parents, some are doctors, some are pharmacists, some are nurses. They have roles that they play in life, but ultimately they're people, and they're driven by the things that drive people. And a lot of that is really about emotion. If you can't get an emotional response from somebody, you're not likely to really get through to them. And in a very crowded marketplace, in very busy lives, understanding that and using that approach of thinking of them as people and how you're going to reach them emotionally is the way in which you can break barriers. So next chart. One of the
just to build on that though, Dave, I was just going to say one of the frustrations I've always had, because this is a category I love, is that we continue to see or have seen people as segments or body parts, whether it's a sore throat or a bruise or a stomach with gastric reflux. And we focus on the body part and the problem, and we don't ever consider the whole person and what drives them and what emotions are important to them. So what I hope today is that we see as an industry start to see the opportunity to really engage with the emotionality of healthcare and not just look at people in terms of bits of body.
Right, exactly. We've got to be beyond that. So if you go to the next chart, I think what I wanted to point out was something that I saw that Liz Benet, and if you don't know who Liz Benet is, he's one of the top strategy planners in the advertising world globally. He's also one of the key guys that's been working the last few years at looking at literally thousands of effectiveness studies for what's the most effective marketing in the world and aggregating that into what are the golden rules of successful marketing. And I really love this chart that he put together on how advertising works, and particularly the key idea that advertising is making the brand easy to think of and easy to buy, creating positive feelings and associations. And that idea of creating positive feelings and associations is at the key and the core of marketing communication. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about your favorite soft drink or your favorite automobile, or if you're talking about medicine. Unless you create those positive feelings, the human being, as Steve said, doesn't react. And by the way, if you've got a kidney disease, your kidney doesn't buy the products, the brands, the solutions. The rest of your body that works together to make those decisions.
Yeah.
Next chart.
Absolutely.
So the secret is to put a real lens on what we're doing on any idea, to see your message through that lens of humanity and humanness. And, just remember, no emotion, no message. So with that, what I want to do is just get Jeremy to start talking. And the way we're going to work this evening or today is Jeremy's going to be taking us through some of his golden rules about what works and doesn't work, showing you examples. And then Steve and I will interject with some dumb questions, but also hopefully some valid points about our own experiences. So off you go, Jeremy. Maybe you could start off by telling us your approach to creativity, if you like.
Okay, thanks, Dave. I'll try not to ramble too much, so just put your finger in the air if I tend to. So I think I'll just quickly outline where I came from, which is a consumer world where you and I met. And when I took over healthcare, there was a couple of things I needed to do internally to change the game around, because very quickly I understood where the issues were sitting. And that is, we had no creative credibility. And when you have no creative credibility, it doesn't really matter whether you're selling a soft drink or a medicine. The people you're talking to aren't really going to connect with you, because the people trying to connect with you don't know how to, or don't have the tools to connect or engage or understand. So very quickly, my goal was to put creativity at the heart of everything, from a PowerPoint through to the final messaging, and to create that as a DNA within the culture of the agency or within the company globally. The vision was to be the best at what we did in our industry. And the strategy was to win awards. Now, that's going to sound pretty offensive to a lot of people, but in the industry itself, whether you are a cook or a chef, you need that Michelin star to have your credibility, to be seen and recognized as the person who knows how to create that particular meal, etc. Same in any other industry in the world, be a lawyer, be a doctor, be an advertising person. Winning those awards creates esteem and confidence. It also makes the company feel that they are an authority and understanding of what they do to the people they're trying to connect with. And the word connect is so important because as I learned going through this, there are no rule books of how to do things different. It is human nature and an understanding, and a couple of words, humanness and empathy, are really key. So to have an understanding of humanity and be able to tap into emotions as a creative is incredibly important. The barriers we had was that we were seen as hacks. And I say we because now I've moved from consumer into the healthcare world. The healthcare world was seen as hacks. They're not creative. That's where the retirement department sits. And so you have this term boring or pharmaghetto. It's a horrible place to be defined. So my job was to lift us out of that and then prove that we were better than we thought we were and to achieve the unexpected, which was to basically become the most awarded network and have the most prestigious creative awards given to you because you earned them throughout the world, through every office. So that culture and DNA of creativity really was at the fore. And by doing that, the opportunity was to change the game for the industry. And I think in the 10 years, that's what we did. It takes time, but once everybody, and I'm talking about the competitors, once they latch onto that, they also become part of the pragmatist changing the game. And so now we have a very, very highly skilled, creative industry in healthcare where people no longer go to after they're retired from the consumer world. They are coming straight out of college, straight out of university, straight out of communication courses and wanting to work in healthcare because healthcare gives them a purpose and a challenge to do good. And right now, with what's going on in the world, it's never more popular or present that this is where the crux of creativity's most important role is. Connecting, enveloping, putting a warm arm around everybody who's ill in some shape, way, or form, and having a solution for them. So I'm not sure if I answered your question or I've rambled too much on that, Dave, but just drag me.
That is great. You know, we've talked in the last couple of weeks as we were talking about all this and gathering some thoughts, and you sort of highlighted these 5 words as sort of guidelines to, from your experience now of 10 years of doing this and recreating the healthcare advertising business. These are the 5 things that some of them bug you more than others, but I think it's great that we're just going to take a step through each of these 5 sort of guidelines and have a couple of examples that you've got lined up for us. So maybe you want to take us through what these are.
Oh, science, empathy, honesty, technology, and engagement. These words for me are not structured. They're not cleverly thought. They were evolving and they came to be having a place in our everyday work just through the evolving of the work and the experience that we were gathering, working in an environment that, quite frankly, as I said before, is the most complex, complicated, and regulated industry to be creative in. There's no room in this place to be anything other than open, honest, and have an empathetic mind and heart in how you talk, how you speak, and how you embrace. So words like science and technology are key words, and I'd like to just touch on those as we go through. So if we pick up with science to start with, in my opinion, I think science is the new reason to believe. Science fiction versus science fact. Science fact right now around the world with COVID is what everybody is listening to. And behind everything you purchase, everything you buy, from a drink to a house to a car, has a message that has a science-related influence to it. In short, a healthcare message. Whether you are buying a house in a new neighborhood, you will probably do your due diligence and find out if there's a landfill, if there's massive electronic pylons or an electronic windmill somewhere. Because all these things affect how you live, quality of life. And in a car, you'll be looking for things that say, what keeps me alive? Not just the airbag, but the map given to you by Google on your car will tell you, because the sensors in the steering wheel are picking up you being drowsy and telling you straight away there are 12 coffee shops on this road in the next 5 minutes, pull over and have a rest. This is the car now working with you, with health in mind, and making sure that the science of that vehicle has you in mind as the owner and the driver, because whether we have driverless cars or not, the interior of a car is now the capsule that's there to keep you alive and put you in a better place, in better shape. So for me, when I talk about science, it's really one of the enablers. And what I love about science is it is the predictor. Where medicine is the, I guess, the solution to a problem. I've got a really bad, painful shoulder. I better go and get a tablet. Science can predict what's happening. And right now there are, and I love this bit, little chips being put into your body, and with the confirmation of a family to a baby. And as you go along in life, that chip is monitoring your body and how your body is growing and functioning and becoming an adult. It's keeping a health record. So at some point, you will know whether you're going to suffer organ or body or joint or various other ailments, because this chip is storing up all the information about you. And I think that's incredibly powerful, which is why I think science is the new predictor. It is the reason why we know what's coming and can be prepared for it, as opposed to being sick and going and getting something to fix me.
Yeah.
So,
but Jeremy, I was just going to say there's a trend. Obviously, people are getting much more skeptical of advertising from big organizations, from companies, even from the prescriptions that doctors sometimes give you. And isn't it true that people are going back and wanting the confirmation, the reassurance, the reason to believe that what they're going to take is going to be doing the job that it's been prescribed to you for, or that you have chosen it for? So the science is really our reason to believe in healthcare. But again, I know that you're going to talk about this, but if you overdo it, you can really confuse the hell out of people and just push people away. Too much confusion really just does the opposite of what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. And I think in the American system, where when you watch American television, you see an ad for a particular brand or a product, it's all about giving you enough information, I think, to scare the crap out of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
30 seconds
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
And I find that I still find that a complete and absolute confusion. It's just too much information. If you were going to buy your cereal, you wouldn't buy cereal.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't.
No.
Yeah. And that's why I like this line that we've got on the chart here about, the kindergarten kid trick, making for a kindergarten kid to understand it. That's what you need. You need to have it based in science, but make it really easy to understand, and then bring it alive in a way so that people just feel comfortable with that fact.
Yeah. One of the most underused and highest opportunity areas for communication is the leaflet, the patient information leaflet that's in the pack. And if any of you bother to read it, it's an encyclopedia of warnings, generally, all the side effects that you could potentially receive in taking this product, all of the regulatory and legalese. And I was talking to my mum, who is a very intelligent and inspiring lady, 85 years old, and I was talking about these leaflets, and she said, Steve, I don't bother to read them, because if I did, I wouldn't take the drug. It would just absolutely scare the hell out of me. She didn't exactly say that, but close enough.
But I think that's really important, and that's a human insight, not a regulatory, not some clown in some business somewhere saying we've got to give all the information. I think that's a big mistake. That's a human reaction to too much information. They often say that ignorance is bliss, and that's a reason. There's a reason for that term. Nowadays, we don't need to be ignorant. We can be informed enough to know just enough to ask the right question. But when we get bombarded with information, we know it's there to cover the ass of the company that's putting that product on the market, then we have to become skeptical. Which is why I think in this day and age, we have so much information, but we are privy to so much information, and we request it to make our own informed decisions and have our opinions based on what we hear and know. And I think that's why it's important for brands to be open and honest about, and we see it in pretty much everything, what makes it, what's in it, why it's there, and what to expect from it. Because the days have gone by where you can just say, take this, it'll make you feel better, and come back in 3 days. And that's a message to the doctor. You cannot be a generalist anymore. You have to understand the person you're talking to is a human being. He is the most important person. She is the most important person in the room at that time in your clinic. And that person has the right to have you understand how they feel. And you should be clicking in and understanding what they're going through. So as a general practitioner, that person is informed and empathy aware to a patient who, because we now know this day and age, mental health is a spin out of stuff that causes people just to lose control because of all kinds of.
So I know, Jeremy, you've got a couple of examples you want to show about this approach to science. So maybe you can talk us through those.
Okay, let me show you the first piece. It's a print ad. Oh, okay, no, it's not. It's the glucose ad. If you look at that, it's 3 ants and they're around a piece of blood or a drop of blood. And it says, got sugar. This is about, what I love about this poster is it's making people understand that there is sugar in your blood. When there's sugar in your blood and there's too much of it, you become diabetic and all the associated ailments that go with that. But it doesn't require a genius to figure out that if I've got too much sugar, I've got a problem. And because I've got a problem, I need to be understanding of what I need to ask my doctor.
Yeah.
This poster, this ad, this poster, this piece of print is quite a few years old now, but it's done the job that untold leaflets and brochures and overwritten documents to consumers and patients and customers and all sorts of people tried to do. And this to me is creativity, understanding what the human need is for information and just enough of it and a way to articulate it. And this is something I say to all the creators. Our job, if it was no good, then they wouldn't be relying on us to articulate and find ways to simplify complex messaging. And I think this is a great example of that. So as we were touching on before, a physician needs to be more than just a doctor. You know, you've got a drug and it's there for cervical cancer. You're a practitioner. You've got to tell a mother that her 8-year-old daughter needs to be protected now and start taking the medication now to prepare her for her young adult life. That's a heavy conversation. And that conversation needs an awful lot of understanding from the producer of the medication to the practitioner, and for the practitioner to speak to the mother, and then all the associated information that goes with that. But empathy, because we have so much information now out there, empathy is much more now part of a prerequisite to talking and putting a warm arm around the patient. Gone are the days when the doctor could be judgmental behind a table or a desk in a white coat and the stethoscope to show everybody who he is and tell you what your problem is. He's now got to embrace you as, again, the most important person in the room. And again, when you go to social media, there's so much on social media being discussed by groups because they've been forced to find community where the physicians haven't been able to be part of that conversation because the regulatory system forces them not to become too familiar. Well, when you're hurt, when you've got something hurting with you, when you've got a very serious issue, you need your doctor to be as human as possible with you, but also not just be a friend, but be a pillar of strength to help you through. So empathy, I think 10 years ago would have been a weak word, just as the word happy. If people aren't happy in the workspace, they're not productive. And productivity is put right against profitability. So now happy has a very stronger, very different, much stronger relationship and role. Well, so does empathy. Showing empathy, showing caring is really important. Now I want to show you a film. This particular film, again, most of the material I'm showing you is not cutting edge, because I don't think cutting edge is the reason for this conversation. This conversation we're having is about how does smart, clever, incisive, and relative communication, creative thinking, create solutions and solve problems and preempt problems because of the way they're approaching their issues. This particular film, when it was made, was the benchmark for every other film around the world to be put against in the healthcare world. It wasn't a TV commercial. It was a piece of, we call it content. It was shown on many different platforms, but it came from one single line. And the brilliance of this is the line dictated the film and the messaging. There are no charts, there are no voiceovers, there are no cutaways to product demos. It is just one incredibly empathetic film that challenges you and makes you think at the very end. Because that one line of copy is what you see at the end, and that's what drives the film. So if we could just show that, thanks.
Jeremy, I'm gonna give a bit of a challenge, which I spoke about yesterday. How do we get empathy when we've got a creative team who are, say, in their mid-20s, early 30s, and they're creating a creative idea for a mid-50s, overweight, diabetic man who's in a stressed out job, and he's got some issues with ulcer or with reflux. How do you get a team to put themselves in the shoes of that person to have empathy and create ideas that really connect with him?
Well, Steve, with great respect, that's the classic brief. And from that classic brief, you would get the classic mediocre wallpaper that you see every day.
Yeah.
So it takes a special creative, but it takes a creative person. And I think I was privileged to work with a lot of very talented young, senior, and far more seasoned creatives. Believing they could do something different was the beginning of why they were able to do things differently. But the most important thing about every creative person is that inside them is a storyteller. And the storyteller in creatives makes them exciting. And my job is to bring that out of them. That's A. B is to take them away from the brief you just gave, so that they find something in there, that little magnet, that little flash of light, that little diamond in the dark. Now, once a creative has found that nugget, a good creative director will help them find a better way to articulate it.
Yeah.
Or the creative will find, as in the case I'm going to show you in a second, stay with their gut feeling, their belief they found something that was just truly on the money.
Yeah.
I think when we have mediocre creativity, it isn't about the creative so much. It's about everything that's supporting that creative. So bad leadership, overpowering client, worried agency, money-driven, blah, blah, blah. When I said at the very beginning, one of the things that my vision was that we were going to have creativity at the core of everything that we do. That means you have to give the creative person a chance to see things as a cubist, a surrealist, an impressionist, or an absolute graphic designer. Because a creative person, every one of them sees the world differently. And it's the one that touches you and grabs you and pulls your heart out through your throat and says, can you feel that? When you see that as a creative person, you go, shit, he's on the money. This is brilliant.
Yeah. And it takes also courage from the company side, or it's important that the company gives you a brief which gives you that latitude to be able to go beyond the classical. Because if they expect the classical ad, then guess what? They'll fight to get back the classical ad even if you bring them some amazing creative.
Absolutely. So the first person I thank whenever we win an award is the client. They are the Medici. Without them, we've got nothing. But the guy that says, I love what you guys do, frighten me, scare me, make me feel amazing, that's the guy. A creative will come to work 20 days a month without fail, 6 o'clock every morning until he cracks it.
Very good.
Okay, this print ad, again, it does what it says on the can. And from a very famous soft drink producer, they produced a product that was the diet version. I think it's such a clever, simple way to produce the message that label would have had a lot of copy on the back of telling you why that product is diet friendly. But by simply showing the labels too big for the bottle, It's pretty telegraphic to me.
Yeah, very nice.
It's one of those ones,
Um,
Jeremy, that you and I wish we'd done, right?
So have a look at that. That's for a brand from Modest. It's a mattress, but if you look at the shapes, I think you'll see pretty quickly what the product is, and you read the messaging on there. To me, that's empathetic. That's saying with an emotional thought and a very gentle and respectful thought that we understand what you're going through and we understand what's important to you. And again, there is nothing on that piece of print to insult or denigrate, but simply reassure. And what I love about that is its elegance, and again, the client allowing the creative to tell that story so simply and so beautifully.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Okay, this is for an aches and pains product. It's been cut out in the bottom right-hand corner, but that's how somebody suffering from severe arthritis and joint pain might see a pedestrian crossing. It's just another challenge. And those steps, every step hurts. And because every step hurts, that empathy has to come across in the brand. Now, the brand, if you looked at the can with the product at the bottom right-hand corner, looks like anything else you buy in the pharmacy. But I just think that's a very simple, a very clever way from a creative point of view to articulate what that person would be thinking. And again, a clever creative can see the world through very different lenses if you give them the support and empower them to go that extra 100 yards.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Jeremy, that when you get down to it, an awful lot of the stuff that I know you're going to point out other examples, but this idea of, you know, visually just capturing something that gets people's attention and makes them look again, right? I mean, whether it's the mattress or this case, it's that sort of thing where you look at it and then you look at it again and then it starts to become real. And I think that's a really powerful thing about, you know, a trick, I guess, that good creative work does, right? It makes you look again and what was that? Oh yeah, I get it, right? So it also empowers it empowers the viewer or the reader or whatever by giving them, you know, a bit of it gives them that credit, right? So hey, you're smart enough to figure this out, you know.
Well, it's also, you know, I think I mean, we might talk about it a bit later, but digital, everyone talks about digital. What does digital mean? Yes, it allows us access to people, but actually digital shortens the time that you have to grab people's attention. It's down to literally milliseconds. If people have to think about what the ad is saying, you've missed your chance. If they've got to feel it within that first millisecond of seeing it and they go, that grabs me, or there's something there, and that's where we're missing a lot of creatives today. People just aren't getting captured in that first moment that the ad is shown or the copy is shown or the piece of asset comes up in online.
There's a lot of reasons. Yeah, okay. There's a lot of reasons for that. And a lot of it comes from clients not wanting to invest in the time. But the most valuable thing a consumer has is time. And so if you give them something they can relate to and want and champion, your brand is already in their life because they've allowed it to come in because they want it. And you're speaking to them on their terms as opposed to treating them as just another number. Anyway, I won't go on too much, but I think the next one is about honesty.
Yeah, let's move on to the next one, Sheila.
Yeah, honesty. Okay.
There we go.
So again, in this world of social media, we've got an awful lot of information out there, and there's an awful lot of conversation, and through the conversation, a lot of opinion, and through a lot of opinion, a lot of falsehoods, and through the falsehoods, confusion, and then the scare tactic, and then corporations and brands and opinion leaders all roll into one and become a mixed voice. But honesty, actually, at the end of the day, and this is nothing new. This goes way back to when communication first became a selling tool. You've got to be honest. You have to be open and honest with your consumer. You're having a dialogue. You're having a conversation. We're not here to brag and boast. We're here to compel. We're here to engage. And we're here to tell you why we should be part of your life. And are we good enough in what we say and how we say to be invited into your life? Gone are the days where a can of baked beans would expect to be in your larder, or a soft drink would expect to be in your fridge. Nowadays, they have to be, they have to have earned the right, and they have to work very hard to have that right to be on the table of the gatekeeper, usually the woman of the house. I hate saying that, but the person buying the product to take care of the family. See, I'm going to get so protective of what you say these days. It's ridiculous. But I think the general message is putting food on the table in my house. The people who put that product out in the marketplace have to work hard to be there, which means they have to be honest. And so that's why when you look at the label, you find if you walk down any shopping market mall at the moment, so many people are reading the back of can labels. So much advertising is asking you to make sure you are allergy aware, blah, 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 blah. The honesty aspect has become something that I think corporations are realizing is where the value cache sits. You can't make a claim. This has got no sugar. Bullshit. You just called it something else. And I saw it on a label not too long ago, the energy rating. And I thought, what is an energy rating on the back of a can of baked beans?
It was the amount of sugar in it.
Oh, so some clown's gone, oh, sugar means energy. Oh, we've got the word. We've got it. It's like friendly fire. What a great term for getting shot in the book, you know?
Right.
So, look, I'm going to show some print. And I'm not sure if the film's there, but the film is for a condition called rosacea. Anyway, have a look at it.
Okay, let's go with the film.
People make judgments based on the colour of my skin all the time. You try to ignore it, but it gets to you. It's meant that I've missed out on jobs. I had the experience, the skills, but it came down to the way I look. It affects my confidence with guys. Can't remember the last time I was asked on a date. It's hard not to feel depressed. People shouldn't judge me by the colour of my skin. Help end the discrimination.
Yeah.
People make judgments based on the colour of...
Okay, that's a bit okay. Well, we'll move on from the film. Here's a print ad. This is about making people aware of arthritis. It says life with arthritis. And again, I just love the simplicity of that simple poster. You look twice again, you realize, and you don't know until the day you've got arthritis just how important that picture on the right-hand side is to you now. But again, a creative person would probably been given a very healthy and lengthy brief on arthritis, but that was the simplicity of which that person saw the solution to get that issue and that message across.
Very good.
I
love that. I love that.
That's an old piece of print. The second
really good.
This guy here. This is for the Kidney Donation Society. It's a Philippines print. And this is one of 3. And this is very confronting. But basically what it's saying is, you can't buy blood off the street like this. It's not just available, you have to donate it. And to donate it, you have to care. And to care, you have to know where to donate that so that more people on kidney dialysis, et cetera, can live. Now, I haven't seen something so confronting like that in blood donation. I've seen some far more compelling and I guess different approaches.
Yeah,
nothing confronting is that. And it's only when you go to a developing, I say third world, developing country, and you have something shoved in your face through a car window. It could be a pair of Nike knockoffs. It's still very confronting on someone TV. So that for me was a very powerful piece. And I just love the blunt honesty. You can't buy this off the street. It has to be donated and you have to be the person. So again, just a very different tone of voice, but I really love the honesty in it.
Very good.
You know, Jeremy, the last week or so, you were sending us a bunch of different examples, and this is the one that really stood out to me. I have worked on blood drive campaigns in the past, etc. And I just can't imagine a lot of people actually, say, yeah, let's go with this. We're back to the client issue, right? That as Steve said, you've got to have a client that's going to allow you to do the great work. And I guess if there's one thing that coming across, and I see some comments from people that are watching this as we're talking, you know, is being brave enough. I mean, it's the honesty in terms of the way we're going to communicate stuff, but it's also the honesty from clients in sort of saying, you know, you tell us what's the best way to get this message across. You know, and this one really is exceptional because, you know, I can just think back to my own history of trying to do campaigns like this, and clients who would have just, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that, you know, just because it was so honest. And it's not about just telling people the facts. It's like, you know, shove a picture in their face. It's a really good example.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Let's go on to the next.
Right. So technology. Is this technology? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, technology is not a cure. And I've seen a lot of work where technology is the reason why the communication was made. But technology, for me, is not a cure. It's become actually the tablet to fix everything. You know, people go, oh, I've got an aching shoulder. Oh, there's a tablet for that. Oh, I've got a sore throat. There's a tablet for that. We've got a problem. Why isn't there an app for that? You know, technology's become the go-to place. But technology is just another shiny tool, as sophisticated as it is. It's a shiny tool of information that helps us, or aids us to make more informed and better decisions faster and more accurately. But technology can't, how do I put this? Technology can't do the human thing yet. And I think until a robot engages in technology to make the robot's life easier, we've got a long way to go. But we can still rely on technology to produce an awful lot of good things for us. Like, for example, there's a Band-Aid that came out a couple of years ago, and if little Johnny fell over in the playground, the teacher would put a Band-Aid on his knee, and the grades would be okay. But by the time the kid goes home, the Band-Aids turn a soft blue, alerting mum and the teacher that young Johnny might be diabetic because of the glucose levels in the blood. I think that technology, that innovation is brilliant. But to get a human element taken out of the process of technology, I think breaks down the engagement and the power of an idea. And it's the power of an idea that I think is far more important. It's how we use that idea. And I'm going to go very anti-technology, as in anti-pasta, but just to demonstrate the brilliance of a very simple idea that people were stumped on how they were going to get this issue sorted. And that is, watch this film, because it's the entry film for the award that this particular campaign cleaned up at Cannes as the most awarded piece of content that year in the world. Okay, and it's got nothing to do with technology as we know it, just the simplicity of the use of an idea.
The immunization history of a child. It's what doctors the world over refer to and check which vaccine is due. But this is Afghanistan, a land with the world's worst infant mortality rate, where traditional biases and remote areas mean doctors have to work without proper immunization history.
We are facing a lot of challenges due to high level of illiteracy and different traditional beliefs in the community.
To counter Afghanistan's traditional bias against immunization, we turn to another tradition. This little bracelet is a common sight in Afghanistan, a lucky charm that protects Afghan newborns from evil forces. Today, this bracelet protects from much more. This is the immunity charm, a simple thread with colored beads that are messages from doctors to each other and to the people of Afghanistan. Each colored bead is code for a specific vaccine. With every vaccination, doctors add the corresponding bead to the bracelet, a reminder of a baby's immunization history worn by the baby. Requiring just 1-hour training programs, the immunity charm has excited the healthcare community in Afghanistan and beyond.
I'm really excited about the immunity charm because it turns culture into incentive and a bracelet into long lineups of mothers and children at vaccine clinics.
On one side, this is in line with the traditional beliefs of the community. On the other side, that will remind the healthcare provider that which vaccines are implemented.
On seeing the pilot's success, the government will be extending the immunity charm to other provinces, helping thousands of infants complete their vaccination schedules. The Afghan immunity charm, making immunization into a tradition.
Brilliant.
So very, very quickly, that's been spread out into many other cultures as well, because bracelets are actually something that are quite prominent in all cultures, Western, Asian, African, etc. This poster here you can see, Spot the Germs for Technology. The reason why I had that up there is if you look closely, everything on that page is made up of a germ. And that ad is over 10 years old. Now, think about where we are today. Look at the power of that brand sitting there, and think about the overuse of messaging they could have enforced on that piece of print and didn't, because you're looking at that and you're getting a taste that it is everywhere. And I think that is stunning. As much of a childish doodle as it looks, I think that might have been the art director's original drawing. I'm just sure. When I saw that, and Dave, that's from Huan Zhu, two famous creators now.
Yeah, two friends of ours, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Jeremy, it raises a good point, because I was talking about our session today with somebody yesterday, and we were going to be doing this. And the discussion got around to the point of, why is it like, this is a fantastic piece of work, right? Now, I have no idea. I know it ran in Malaysia because that's where Huan Zhu were. I don't know if it ran anywhere else. But the question is, sometimes you see work like this, that it's timeless, right? And you often wonder why it is that great work, 10 years later, you could run this and obviously, you know, it would have just as much impact. You've got to wonder why people don't sometimes do that. Why they don't just rerun the great creative art, you know? Yeah.
But I think Dave, sorry, Jeremy, but I think great creative built on an amazing insight is timeless, because it might be something around a human truth. It might be around a basic human need. It might be something that is just right. And you can see amazing campaigns built on one creative idea that are 20 years old today.
Yeah.
Right? They just keep reinforcing the creative idea behind it.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, Jack.
A couple of things. A lot of it's down to not invented here. New brand guy comes in, changes everything, etc., etc. Brands like Heineken, brands like Cadbury, Nestle, they have timeless campaigns in there, and it's down to the intelligence and the balls, and I think the maverick thinking of the current brand manager to see what can be built upon and then expanded, as opposed to trying to do everything brand new again. That's a conversation for another day.
Okay, we'll have another session on brand managers, I think, in the next 3 weeks.
Next example.
All right, let's go.
Okay. Engagement.
Engagement, okay? To me, I believe we need to humanize communication a lot more than where it sits today. I think we've got a very cold and very disconnected feel in the work and how we approach, whether it's consumer or in medical. Medical's tried to get warmer, but it's become very schmaltzy and become very formulaic. I want to show you this film, and I really hope we can see this film, because this is about prescription drug addiction in the States. And when this film ran, and the amount of people, whether it be in the client or in forums, who got on the phone to make sure their kid answered the phone and sounded, and because of FaceTime, looked okay for reassurance, was incredible. So engagement for me is something that's very powerful. In augmented reality and artificial intelligence, we know the technology is there for, I'm going to have a throat operation. My practitioner has just mapped the inside of my throat. I put on the goggles. Now he and I are standing inside my throat in his surgery, and he's pointing out to me my throat and telling me where the surgery is going to take place, so I can actually physically see inside my mouth.
Amazing.
Fear taken away. Another conversation for another day, because that's about the brilliance of content. So please, let's see if we can see this film.
Let's see the movie then, Sheila.
Have you heard a word I've said? That'll be home with cinnamon cook for you both, okay? Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Have you heard a word I've said? I'm off out. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Shocking, but very powerful.
Very scary. Very scary.
So
yeah.
unfortunately, the film is all over the place, juddery, but everybody on that film who created that film were a survivor, a carer, a helper, a savior to someone who died or had a relationship with someone who died. And all the things you saw on there were things that actually happened, from the kid photographing the products inside the cabinet in the bathroom, to him taking the drugs around the house, and the fact that we would leave our drugs around the house because mentally we think, oh, they're prescriptions, so they're for me, so they're not going to hurt anybody. The distressing thing about that is that that number ticking at the end never ever marries up to gunshots, drinking and driving, or any other ways of dying. It's consistently the highest number. And per capita in Canada and Australia, we didn't do it in the UK, but we know those figures are as alarming there as they are in other countries. And so because that was so confronting, because it was so with the throw up and everything, and all shot through a camera that was mounted in the kid's mouth, so you got his real point of view. Because of all of that sense of realism, I saw someone write the word hectic. It's mayhem. Because you don't know why Johnny fell through that glass table when you come home. Oh, I tripped, Mum. Yeah, he tripped because he's bombed out on your painkilling tablets that you left there by the kitchen cabinet on the bedside table. So an incredible background story to all that, but the response to it was very, very powerful and a little ahead of its time, because it was tapping into what was going on in the States, but not wanting to be acknowledged. But now everybody's talking about it. So that powerful piece of engagement I thought was amazing. Look, I just want to show you one piece of print here if we can. It's for the Red Cross. That one there. This is the beginning of a campaign. We talked about intelligent clients. So this client only had enough money to do a small print campaign to get people to donate blood in a country where giving blood wasn't top of mind, because that's something that's quite personal to me. I only want to give it to my friends. We had to show people that opposites really are the same. So she's just my type. There are 3 more in that campaign poster presentation, but it led to a bigger campaign. It led to a blogger blood drive, which ended up becoming the Guinness Book of Records for the biggest blogger blood drive campaign in the world. And it was driven by Facebook because it turned the cultural attitude of giving to a stranger. And if you are now on Facebook, you had a buddy, and Facebook's full of buddies and likes. You can't let down the people who like you. So that compelled a change in generational attitude to giving blood, as opposed to being very selfish about who and when you gave it to. Yep. So very, very forward-thinking client.
All about humanity. Yeah, all about humanity. I think we were just going to, there's a couple of questions that are coming I want to ask. I think, Jeremy, before we do that, if we just go to the next chart, thanks, Sheila. You wanted to talk about this one, diabetes, right?
Well, this was, it is what it is. And that's what will happen if you don't take attention or pay attention to it. And it's a lovely play on words. But as I was saying to the guys the other day, when I presented that in Germany, they said, yeah, well, so what? This is how we spell it. What's the problem? But I think
Yeah.
the majority of English speakers, that pretty telegraphically tells you what that thing can do to you if you don't pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that thing that just stops you again, right? It's just a simple thing that would just stop people and go, what? Oh, and then they read the small print at the bottom. Oh, you know, it's a big message just done by something that just grabs your attention.
Very good.
Hey, Jeremy, but before we move on, our good friend Trevor, as a good friend of Steve and I, has asked a question, right? Which is, you know, you talk about science, we talked about, you know, you keep on referring to this about making it understandable and everything. And yet, you know, if you look in America in particular, and I guess other countries around the world, you have this strong anti-vaxxers sort of movement. And, you know, COVID has really brought to life. And as we get close to possible vaccination, anti-COVID vaccinations, there's a lot of discussion about the anti-vaxxers and the fact that there are people that just seem to refuse to believe in science. He's just wondering like what your thoughts are about trying to message to people like that.
The wonderful thing about the world is everybody's different and everybody has an opinion and is allowed to be very opinionated. Our job in advertising isn't to sell. Nowadays, it's more about convincing or engaging or discussing why A versus B is a better option than C and D. And I think for those people who are skeptics, it's about being more informed. And I'd like to think that some of the work here, if it was more COVID driven or more science bent on, if we did a discussion on how does science change minds and attitudes and how does science connect, I would say science is sexy. And the information in science, if you go to the Natural History Museum, how engaging is it when you actually can physically touch and understand how an atom is made, and if it connects, it creates a spark, blah, blah, blah. But if you have to read about it through piles of text and overwritten copy, you're never going to understand or engage it. So our job is to bring, I guess, edutainment is a horrible word, it's a real mix-up, but we're getting into that category of informing and letting people know. Nat Geo, Discovery Channels, these content corporations do brilliant jobs through entertainment, but quietly are educating us and persuading us to think differently. And I think that's a fantastic avenue to be in.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, one last thing. If we just go forward, Sheila, we were talking about, you know, this is a terrible time, COVID, you know, everything's going on. We're getting tons of messaging. We asked you what was your favorite COVID-related piece of advertising or messaging, and you gave us one example. I just want you to just introduce it and then just show that last film with the...
Yeah. Let's see that last film, Sheila.
So the reason why I chose that is because there was a comment out on the social media about the boring wallpaper if you turn the sound down of the recent COVID communication around the world. No matter where you were, it was the same formula, some droning music, some sorrowful faces, all going way too far over the point of impact, becoming more dross. When this came out, it just simply gave that message because of the Statue of Liberty representing so much freedom, honesty, etc., etc. Putting a giant mask. It all sounds pretty obvious, but somebody did it. And because they did it so well and did it so simply and so compellingly, you know, Cuomo, the governor of New York, cited it as a piece of communication that rallied people together. And I think everything else is scaring the shit out of you. This just made you feel good about doing something that we've been asked to do without law enforcement. Just please wear a mask, because it is about your liberty and freedom. It's about your health, protecting yourself against others and others against you.
And I just wanted, I wanted to make sure we included that before we finish up, because of what you just said. you know, my own experience of working with you and working with a lot of other great creative guys over my career. And the reason why, you know, I might treat you like a buddy and a mate, and you are and everything, but the reality of it is I've always sort of stood in awe of all these great creative directors I work with, because what they actually do is a lot of the time is the thing that when it's made, and you'll often hear this, oh yeah, that's pretty obvious. Well, I could have done that, but nobody did do it. That it's the difference between, it's not a complicated, you're not making, you know, encyclopedias, you're making things that people can simply understand. And by doing that, it's the true creative essence, right? Is breaking it down into something that everybody goes, oh yeah, I get that. You know, I know it's a great example of that. So.
Yeah,
Dave, could I just say one abstract thing? I think we're all aware of those fantastic early modern minimalistic paintings that are hanging in the gallery, I think in New York, giant black squares. I think there's 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
They first started off as a bunch of flowers, and then the artist painted over and over and over until the point where he was just so done with this supposedly backdrop for a theater group he was working for. In the end, he painted these black squares. There's a photograph of a lady and her kid looking at the black squares, photographed from behind. There's a speech bubble. And the speech bubble says the young kid says, so what, I could have done that. But the mother says, yes, but you didn't. And I think that's an awful lot, because that artist, and I forget his name, it's Casimir something or other, but back in the early 1900s, he produced minimalism, cubism, surrealism, all in 3 paintings.
Yeah.
Without realizing it. Anyway, thanks.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So Dave, I think we've got to the end. So
yes, we've had a great hour or so. I have to just point out, I know probably Jeremy can't follow this because he's been talking and doing stuff. It's been great. But we've had a lot of tremendous feedback, a lot of people commenting just how interesting this is. We have got some other questions, and for those of you listening, if you've asked a question, what will happen is that in the next few days, Jeremy and I and Steve will come back to you with some answers. We will make sure that if you want, obviously, you'll be able to get a downloadable copy of the whole session. But if you want some links to the films and to the examples of the print work, happy to share those with you.
Yeah, we'll certainly send it out. But just from my side, Jeremy, before we go on to Sheila telling us a little bit about what's going to come up next, just want to say a huge thank you, because I think this topic of creativity is something that stumps people when it comes to healthcare. And I think healthcare is the most important category in people's lives. There's nothing more important than your health. And for COVID has really taught us that. But to inspire people about healthcare has been one of the biggest challenges across many generations. And I think these are some really, really important and salient topics that you've outlined here, that if we start to apply some of these, certainly will engage and inspire and empower our communities towards much better healthcare for themselves. So just a big thank you from my side and the team at the Consumer Healthcare Training Academy. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So let's, Sheila, would you like to talk us out? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Jeremy. Thanks to Dave, thanks to Steve, and thank you everyone for joining us again. Thank you, Kapkun. Maraming salamat po, Sheshe. Thank you, everyone. But before we part, allow us please to invite you again to our next 2021 Health and Wellness with the Different webinar series on September 30, 2020. Our topic will be Vital Designs, a Prognosis for the Healthcare Industry 2025 and beyond. We will have Mr. Stu Lloyd as our speaker. Stu is a business creativity expert and a 2-time cancer survivor. And Stu has worked with Pfizer, Bristol Myers Squibb, Johnson & Johnson, Boehringer, Novartis, Singapore National Health Promotion Board, and others to turbocharge their creative thinking skills. On September 30, Stu will be joined by our moderators earlier, Mr. Dave McCaughan and Mr. Steve Sowerby. Sue, Dave, and Steve will review and discuss what's next for the healthcare industry. They will take us through a couple of fundamental shifts that are already underway, such as the move towards the customer experience and also prevention rather than cure. They will let us appreciate Stu's crystal ball on implications, challenges, and opportunities of this through his 6 P's of innovation framework: products, process, people, purpose, promotion, premises. With Dave and Steve, Sue will also give us a questioning tool to challenge the status quo so we can help to challenge our assumptions and create disruptive opportunities within the industry and paint a bleak picture for those who don't foresee this future. Again, thanks everyone, and we are really looking forward to seeing you again before this month ends on September 30. But for now, thank you, bye, and have a great evening, everyone. Thanks again, Steve, Dave, Jeremy, thanks everyone. Have a great evening, have a great Thursday, bye.
Bye.